is the Mississippi Public Service Commissioner of the Southern District, Dane Maxwell. It's been a long time, sir. Good morning to you. How are you? It's good to have you.
Good morning, Paul. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Merry Christmas to you and your staff and your family and all along the Gulf Coast and the great city of Pascagoula. I'm sure you're missing all of the work as mayor. Or maybe not.
I don't miss it, no.
Let me get to a couple of things here. First of all, and I was thinking about this, the percentage of people in Mississippi right now who can afford to build or maybe retrofit enough solar panels to adequately power their entire home is going to be a very small percentage of people, especially in today's inflationary time with the Biden recession. They would, of course, be higher income people who would do that. And it's their option if they would be saving that money on their own, and I guess the money the electricity saved would be used by the energy companies, certainly in a time where there's an extreme load situation. So I can't see why that's not a good thing. But on the other side of it, as far as this net metering in this situation goes on, I can see where it could possibly cost the taxpayers who don't do it, or the ratepayers who don't do it, an increase. There has been some mitigation of this since the last time we talked to it, and I think probably when you were on the air with Gerard. But what is the update on this situation?
Well, the update is it's passed, and hopefully that the legislature will change it from its current form. Because, I look, people have accused me of not being a fan of renewables, and that's just not right. I am a fan of renewables, and I want to invest in them, and I think we need to diversify all of our energy options. But the fact is when you talk about net metering, like you said, there's going to be a few people, most of them are going to be wealthy, and they're going to be able to afford to put these panels on there. So why should those that don't have that financial ability have to pay for them? Because those ratepayers, their bills will go up just to subsidize these others. And, I just don't think that's fair. I'm not ever going to support that. I don't just generally support rate increases and subsidies and things like that because they're just not good for everybody.
You are in the same class of some citizens groups who have protested this. And I understand that the governor also thinks it's a bad idea. Mr. Presley and Brent Bailey were the two that voted for this. You were outvoted on it, so you said it is law. Was it changed from the original language and watered down a bit? And tell me about that.
Well, they made some adjustments on the cash incentive, which went from $3,500 to $3,000. So you get the ratepayers have to turn around and pay whoever applies $3,000 of their money, and then on top of that, they adjusted what the solar facility itself would be able to charge back the energy company. And see, here's my point with that, Paul. Look, we don't have a lack of energy in Mississippi. Okay, we have an abundance of energy. I've agreed to go along with the renewables because that's just the trend, and that's what my constituents want to a certain degree. But the fact is we can go to MISO on the open market and buy wholesale power all day long. Why should we be paying an elevated cost back to people who want to put solar panels on their house just to make them feel good? I'm just not a big fan of that. I'm not going to support that.
I'm trying to get to some of the questions asked by this audience. And number one, the disagreement, is it one or twofold? Is the disagreement solely because the power companies are going to give a $3,000 rebate? So if they give $3,000, they're in the business to make money one way or the other. They got to make that up, either with a rate increase or one way or the other if they give $3,000. I understand that. Is the other part of that buying excess, if they bought excess power that is generated by this?
That's
And
correct.
tell me how that is a bad deal.
Well, when they buy the excess power, they're paying more of a retail price for it rather than go to the
Mm-hmm.
market and get it wholesale. So the ratepayers will have to pay that difference. If you can go to, these numbers aren't accurate, but let's use it just for instructional purposes only. If you can go buy it for two 2 cents a kilowatt hour,
Mm-hmm.
when they charge that 4, well, you've got to pay double for that kilowatt hour. And
I'm sorry. Where is that written? Is that in state law? Is it in the Public Service
that's in the
Commission's
net
law?
metering plan.
That is in
Net
there.
metering
Okay.
plan. If you put solar on your house, you get to charge back your excess to the power company, and they have to pay you for that excess above and over the avoided cost, which means you're going to make a profit. And basically, anybody with solar at that point becomes a power company because they're generating energy and selling it back to the company, and the ratepayers are having to pay for it.
If that's the case, and I got to ask you this because I really don't know. In the world of technology, we can do so many different things now with the wireless thermostats and things such as that. And I would imagine if you have solar, if we're talking about the state-of-the-art advancements on technology, can they dial back their generation of energy to the point where they come out as a zero balance, and that would actually save them some money? Or do they just put it on there and they've got a surplus and they don't know what to do with it and they want to sell it?
Well, they'll put it on their power plant. I mean, their solar plants that they're working now, they're selling back to the market on wholesale, and so they're making money for the ratepayer on that side. But on the other side, they're just going to increase the cost of power that the ratepayer ultimately has to pay. It's kind of like it just doesn't make sense to me, and it's not. None of this is rocket science. Are you going to take a very, very small group of people and subsidize their desire to put solar on there and have the rest of us pay for it? I can't afford solar.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, and there are most of the people in the state of Mississippi, because this was one of the things about the bill that a guy in Washington sitting behind the Oval Office sold to us, that we're going to save so much money starting January 1st because we can retrofit this, we can get insulation. Some people have put the cost to $50,000 to $60,000. Well, actually, if you go on and do the other thing he wanted you to do, is trade in your car and get a EV car, it's going to cost you a couple of $100,000 by the time you do all this. My problem in my agreement with you is that if somebody does this, they're going to be to the point where they can afford it, but they're also going to be looking for a payback. How fast can I pay this back? In other words, if I make this investment and I draw a line here and I'm figuring out how much I'm going to save and how much I'm spending, I want to pay off this, whatever it takes, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or more. I have no earthly idea. It depends on the size. But I don't want it to take me 20 years to pay this out. And if I can do this...
Well, it's going to take you...
we'll talk about it when we come back, because what they would like is to have this deal that was passed and pay it off as soon as possible. Let's not forget that they're already got a pretty good savings with the lack of an electricity bill. We'll talk more with Dane Maxwell coming up in a moment or two. Is this a good deal or a bad deal for most of the people of Mississippi? Governor doesn't think so. Dane Maxwell doesn't think so, and some citizen groups are having problems with it now. Get back to the interview and the visit with Southern District Public Service Commissioner Dane Maxwell. I'm looking, Dane, Commissioner, on the internet trying to find something as far as cost. Complete hybrid solar kit is $20,000. I see one here for $10,000. I have no idea what, let's say, a 2,500 square foot home would cost. But, I mean, you can do some research and find out. It is not going to be cheap. My question is, did that $3,000 come from the acquiescence of the power companies, or where did they agree to pay that? Or they want to pay that? as a promotional tool or what?
Well, I don't think any of them want to agree, but since they passed this, they're going to have to pay it, and they're going to just charge it back to the ratepayers. And
well, wait a minute. How can the Public Service Commissioner demand the power company pay them $3,000 set a rebate?
Because they set this as law, and they're going to have to rebate that money, and they are giving them permission to turn around and charge it back to the ratepayers.
And now the power companies are in disagreement with that?
Well, I think they've come to an agreement. They were in disagreement, and they were on board with what I was saying. But when they started reducing the numbers, the power company got on board, and I didn't. And Paul, let me just say, it's people don't really understand this. This is just a load of crap that came down from the administration that we have now for a lot of reasons. It's like pumping the EV. You know, I sit there and watch these EV chargers for electric vehicles, and behind them is a generator, a diesel generator.
I know.
It takes about 3 hours.
We can talk all day about the hypocrisy of that one, and it is crazy. But I don't have a lot of time, but I agree with you. And we need to get to the bottom of this. And you say it's something the legislature could take care of.
They can take care of it. And the only reason I say that, well, they can, but I say that because they've talked about it. In fact, they've talked to me about it, and they want to put their hands around this because they don't want this subsidy to be out there.
Dane, is this in addition to the ARPA funds and any tax rebate from the federal government? Will you put that with it? Or does one cancel the other? Or do we know?
No, this has nothing to do with the ARPA funds, what we're talking about here. This is just this is a net metering policy that we put in place, the commission, that allows the power company to pay these subsidies out and recoup them back from the rate base, which means.
Do you know what the ARPA fund is? Do you know what the ARPA rebate is?
I don't.
On solar?
I don't know. I don't.
So I'm just thinking if somebody
it comes out of the taxpayers and rate base, you know, whatever the ARPA funds, that comes from taxpayer money. What you're going to see this policy do is come from the pockets of the other ratepayers. And some people
not the same
think that's
thing.
okay.
Well,
some people think that's
well,
okay.
I mean, and you're doing the same thing for insulation, for a multitude of different new windows and things such as that, all inclusive in the ARPA fund. So you got to pay for it first of all. There was a couple of other things I want to touch base with you. We're almost out of time here, but any statement at all as far as your area and broadband? How are you guys doing in the Southern District?
Well, we've finally got broadband out of the commission because we never regulated broadband, and what I'm trying to do is get the commission back to the basic functions, core functions of the commission. Well, we don't regulate broadband. So we worked with the legislatures. They started the BEAM office, which Sally Doty now runs, is doing an exceptional job. So you have internet problems, you can reach out to those guys, and they're the ones that handle internet. I'd also like to do that with the no call and the telemarketers because, you know, reality is we don't have any authority over them. We just take calls and it ties up our staff, and, you know, we get 300, 400 calls a day, and it's hard to keep up with, and I've talked to the legislature about that as well.
Would be something that you guys couldn't vote on to do that, or you get that is also a legislative mandate? In other words, so you couldn't put that on the agenda for the next meeting and vote to transfer that somewhere else? Wanted to talk to you about this big ceremony you guys had about is it in Viva or in Viva? I think it's in Viva. That's a big deal because people, man, congratulations on that one.
Yeah,
I don't think people have.
We got a new plant coming in Stone County. So that makes one up North Mississippi, Stone County, George County, and then we have the new facility at the port where they're exporting it out on ships.
You got it. We're talking about wood pellets, by the way. Yeah. Things always good. Don't be a stranger. We got more to talk about. Look forward to talking to you during the session, too, my man. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Dane Maxwell, Southern District Commissioner, Mississippi Public Service Commissioner. Thank you so very much.